Modern homes have a product for almost every problem, but many household problems begin before a product can fix them, with one damp cloth, one forgotten package, or one small leak nobody checked. Older households were not magically cleaner or safer. They simply depended more on inspection, airflow, timing, and repair. On this table is a bunch of tired basil, an unlabeled pantry jar, and a kitchen cloth that is still damp from yesterday. None of them looks dramatic, yet each one is giving us information before waste, damage, or danger becomes obvious. These 20 habits show what is still worth using, what modern convenience pushed aside, and which old advice should remain in the past. We will begin with the easiest rescue, then follow the same quiet signals from the pantry to the bedroom window. The first habit is to treat cut basil more like a vase of flowers than a bag of refrigerator greens. When the leaves droop but remain green, clean, and pleasantly scented, dehydration may be the problem. Trim roughly 1/2 inch from the bottom of the stems with a clean blade. Remove any leaves that would sit below the waterline. Then stand the stems in a glass with a little fresh water at room temperature. The change is not magic. Cutting exposes a fresh pathway through which the stems can take up water. Given time, leaves that had folded downward may lift and feel firmer. Change the water if it becomes cloudy, and keep the glass away from harsh heat. This is a rescue for tired basil, not spoiled basil. Slimy stems, dark decay, mold, or an unpleasant odor are reasons to let it go. The useful old instinct was not to save everything. It was to look closely enough to tell the difference between something thirsty and something finished. The second habit uses the same resource but a different action. Lettuce, kale, chard, and other sturdy greens sometimes wilt because their cells have lost water. Separate the leaves, trim a dry end when needed, and submerge them in clean cold water. A few ice cubes can keep the bath cool. After soaking, lift the greens out, drain them well, and dry the surface before serving or refrigerating them. Cold water may return some crispness, but it does not reverse spoilage. Leaves that are merely limp are one thing. Leaves that are slimy, moldy, badly discolored, or sour-smelling are another. No bath can make unsafe food safe again. That distinction matters throughout the house. A good household habit begins with diagnosis. Before choosing a remedy, decide whether you are looking at lost moisture, too much moisture, ordinary wear, contamination, or damage that has already gone too far. The third habit is to stop asking every vegetable to live in the same basket. Onions and potatoes are often placed together because they arrive from the same part of the grocery store. Their preferred storage conditions, however, are not identical. Dry onions need good curing, ventilation, and a cool, dry place. Trapped moisture encourages decay. Potatoes need darkness so light does not turn their skins green, and they generally prefer colder, more humid conditions than onions. Potatoes intended for frying are often kept a little warmer than the coldest storage range because very cold storage can increase their sugars and darken them during frying. You do not need a perfect root cellar to use the principle. Give each vegetable its own breathable container, keep both away from heat, and check them regularly. Remove damaged pieces before one failing item affects the rest. If a potato has extensive green areas, deep decay, or heavy sprouting, thrift has reached its limit. The lesson is larger than two vegetables. Storage should match the material, not merely the shape of the container available. The fourth habit is to put the oldest food where your eyes land first. Historical storerooms depended on labeled jars, regular inspection, and a clear place for each staple. The modern version is simple. When you bring home a new package, place it behind the older one. Mark the purchase date, or the date you opened it, when that information will be useful. This is not about turning a kitchen into a warehouse. It is about preventing a half-used bag of rice from disappearing behind 3 new bags. A date label is a memory aid, not a guarantee of safety. You still inspect the package, follow storage directions, and notice changes in odor, texture, seal, or appearance. Take 10 seconds and look at the pantry from the doorway. If you cannot see what needs to be used next, attractive containers have not created a working system. The best arrangement makes the next correct action obvious before you reach for anything. The fifth habit is to let the container contain the problem. Flour, meal, cereal, dried fruit, pet food, nuts, and spices can carry pantry insects into a cupboard. Thin bags and folded cardboard may hide an infestation until larvae or moths begin moving beyond the original package. Once a dry food has been opened and inspected, a sealable glass, metal, or heavy plastic container gives you two advantages. It helps protect the food from new contamination, and if insects were already present but unnoticed, it can limit how far they travel. A clear container also makes webbing, clumping, or movement easier to see. Containment is not the same as rescue. Food that is visibly infested should be discarded rather than poured into a handsome new jar. Then inspect nearby packages, vacuum shelf corners and cracks, and remove the vacuum contents from the house so the source does not simply return. An airtight pantry is useful, but an observable pantry is better. The goal is not to hide dry goods. It is to notice change while the problem is still confined. The sixth habit replaces an old danger with a safer modern tool. Freeze questionable dry goods instead of spraying the food cupboard. 19th century household books sometimes recommended substances for insects that no responsible modern kitchen should use around food. Age does not make poison wise. If an older dry product is not visibly infested but you have concern about pantry insects, extension guidance supports freezing it at 0 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 4 days. The package must freeze thoroughly. Keep it sealed as it returns to room temperature so condensation does not wet the food. If insects, webbing, off odors, or obvious damage are already present, discard the product. Find the source, inspect every nearby package, vacuum seams and corners, and transfer unaffected food to sound containers. Spraying insecticide into an emptied cupboard does not solve insects living inside food packages, and chemical residue creates a new problem near dishes and ingredients. Do not put finely ground flour into an oven as a casual home pest treatment. Freezing, isolation, cleaning, and removal of the source form a safer system. This is exactly where historical respect requires modern judgment. Preserve the habit of inspection, not the hazardous chemical recipe. The seventh habit is to know the difference between stale bread and moldy bread. Bread becomes stale as moisture moves and its starch structure changes. That loaf may be dry, firm, and disappointing for a sandwich, yet still useful. Cut it into cubes for croutons, dry it further for breadcrumbs, or use it in a cooked dish suited to older bread. Mold changes the decision completely. Bread is soft and porous, so the growth can extend beyond the colored patch visible on the surface. Do not sniff the spot closely, remove one slice, and assume the rest is clean. If bread shows mold, discard it. This is one of the most important limits in any thrift tradition. Saving food is valuable only while the food remains fit to save. Dryness alone may create another ingredient. Fuzzy growth, an unusual odor, damp decay, or contamination calls for a different answer. The eye-catching household trick would be a way to rescue every loaf. The truthful trick is better. Learn which transformation belongs in the kitchen and which one belongs in the trash. Good judgment prevents waste, but it also knows when preventing illness matters more than preventing loss. The eighth habit is to cool leftovers wide rather than deep. A pot of soup, beans, stew, or cooked meat can remain warm in the center long after the surface appears cooler. Leaving the pot on the counter until bedtime does not make cooling safer. It gives perishable food more time in temperatures where bacteria can multiply quickly. Divide the food into smaller portions and place it in shallow containers. A wider surface and a shallower depth allow heat to leave faster. Refrigerate perishable leftovers within 2 hours or within 1 hour when the surrounding temperature is above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Keep the refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Do not rely on smell to tell you whether time at room temperature has made food unsafe. Some harmful bacteria do not announce themselves with a bad odor. If a perishable dish has remained out beyond the safe limit, reheating is not a reliable reset button. The older value worth keeping is the refusal to waste a good meal. The modern correction is using measured time, cold storage, and containers shaped for rapid cooling. One deep pot may look tidy, but several shallow containers do the important work faster. Label them, use refrigerated leftovers promptly, and freeze portions you will not reach in time. So far, water has revived leaves, threatened onions, and controlled the cooling of leftovers. Now follow that same invisible worker beyond the kitchen. Water settles into cloth, rises as steam, condenses on cold glass, and enters through leaks no cleaner can repair. The tools have changed, but the signal has not. When a material stays damp, find out why. The 9th habit is to let the bed breathe before you make it. A 19th century household manual instructed the person making a bed to open the windows, lay coverings over chairs, and air the mattress. We do not need to copy every detail to understand the observation beneath it. During sleep, bedding collects warmth and moisture from the body. Pulling a heavy cover tight when you rise can hold some moisture in the layers. Instead, fold the covering back and allow the bed to air while you wash, dress, or prepare breakfast. Rotate the mattress only according to its manufacturer's instructions. Airflow is not sterilization. A bright window does not guarantee that microbes, allergens, or pests have disappeared. Bedding still needs laundering, and persistent dampness needs a source check. But giving ordinary moisture a chance to leave before closing the layers is sensible care. The old routine was not about making an unmade bed look respectable. It delayed appearance long enough to protect the material beneath it. The 10th habit is to open a window only when the outside air will help. Fresh air can clear odors and move moisture out, but a window is not a one-direction valve. On a humid afternoon, it may bring more water vapor inside. During wildfire smoke or an air quality warning, it may bring in something worse. Check conditions rather than following a ritual. If outdoor air is dry enough and clean, cross-ventilation can be useful. Openings on different sides create a clearer path than one barely cracked window. Use a fan only when it moves air safely and does not spread contamination. In mild weather, this judgment may change from morning to afternoon. When outdoor humidity is high, air conditioning or a dehumidifier may be better. During cooking and bathing, a properly vented exhaust fan deals with moisture near its source. People with respiratory or medical needs should follow local health and air quality guidance. The forgotten skill is not keeping every window open. It is noticing the direction in which air, heat, and moisture are likely to travel before you decide what to open. Set the window aside for a moment and look at this small humidity meter. Older housekeepers watch the feel of sheets, the smell of a cellar, and the water collecting on glass. Those observations still matter, but a simple measurement can show whether a room is persistently humid rather than merely uncomfortable for an hour. The question at the midpoint of this house is no longer, which old trick should I copy? It is, what is the material telling me? Glass shows water. Fabric holds it. Wood swells around it. Dry goods clump in it. A useful household system learns to read those signs before reaching for a stronger product. The 11th habit is to read condensation as a warning, not just a mess. When warm, moisture-laden air reaches a cold pane, pipe, or wall, droplets form. Wiping the glass removes visible water, but if the room stays humid and the surface stays cold, the droplets return. Use a hygrometer instead of relying only on how the room feels. For many homes, keeping relative humidity below 60% and ideally around 30 to 50% helps limit condensation and mold growth. Climate, season, building design, and personal needs affect the practical target, so treat that range as guidance. Then look for the source: cooking, showering, an unvented dryer, a humidifier, a plumbing leak, or air from a wet crawl space may contribute. Increase safe air movement, use exhaust ventilation, insulate cold surfaces when appropriate, or use mechanical drying when outdoor air cannot help. If you clean half a wet window and leave the cause untouched, returning water gives the lesson in plain sight. The glass is not failing to stay clean. It is reporting a condition elsewhere. That is the midpoint change in all 20 habits. Stop treating the sign as the whole problem and trace it back to the source. Once you trace moisture toward its source, the 12th habit becomes obvious. Send steam outside before it settles through the house. Run a properly vented exhaust fan while showering, cooking, boiling large pots, or using a dishwasher that releases warm vapor into the room. Leave the fan running long enough to clear the moisture instead of switching it off the moment the sound becomes inconvenient. The important word is outside. A bathroom fan that empties into an attic, or a clothes dryer that vents into an enclosed space, moves moisture out of sight without removing it from the building. Check that vents are connected, unobstructed, and actually discharging where intended. Watch a pot begin to steam. Moist air spreads upward, reaches cooler cabinets and walls, and may travel into adjoining rooms. Catching it near the source requires less work than drying every surface later. The old household concern was keeping rooms dry and sweet. The modern fan performs that job, but only when the duct gives the moisture a complete path out. The 13th habit is to fix the leak before you fight the mold. A dark mark beneath a sink, a soft edge beside a tub, peeling paint below a window, or a repeated musty smell is not asking for a stronger fragrance. It is asking where the water came from. Stop the source when you can do so safely. Repair the plumbing, roof, gutter, seal, drainage problem, or condensation condition responsible for the wet material. Remove standing water and begin drying promptly. Current guidance emphasizes drying wet areas and materials within roughly 24 to 48 hours because continuing moisture gives mold a better opportunity to grow. Small growth on an appropriate hard surface may sometimes be cleaned with detergent and water after the moisture problem is corrected, followed by complete drying. Porous materials can be more difficult because growth may extend into them. Large areas, contaminated water, hidden growth, structural damage, or a household member with special health concerns can require professional assessment. Do not paint over active growth, perfume the room, or use bleach as a substitute for repairing the water problem. Those actions may hide a sign while the underlying damage continues. This is the clearest example of the principle we found on the window. The stain is a messenger. Silencing it without tracing the water is not cleaning. It is postponing the repair while the repair becomes larger. Once moisture is stopped at its source, apply this thinking to dirt and wear. Stop soil at the doorway and mend cloth before a loose thread opens. Prevention seldom looks dramatic because the damage never becomes dramatic in the first place. The 14th habit is to stop outdoor dirt at the door. A doormat helps scrape soil from a sole, but taking shoes off at the entrance does more. It reduces dust, mud, lawn chemicals, and other outdoor material carried across floors and into carpets. Create a landing zone rather than a pile people step around. Use a durable outer mat, a washable inner mat, and a tray or rack for shoes. Clean the mats regularly. A saturated mat becomes another source of dirt. Indoor footwear makes the change easier for people who need support underfoot. This habit is especially useful in homes where children play on the floor or where pesticides and fertilizers are used outdoors. It does not create a sterile boundary, and it does not replace ordinary floor cleaning. It simply removes part of the load before that load spreads through every room, reducing the repeated cleaning needed later. The 15th habit is to repair the first loose thread. A button beginning to wobble, a hem opening at one corner, or a seam separating by half an inch is a small job. Continue wearing and washing the garment without attention, and every pull transfers more force to the remaining stitches. Soon the repair requires more time, more fabric, and greater skill. Keep a modest repair box where you can reach it. Needles, suitable thread, a thimble, small scissors, a few common buttons, and a safety pin for temporary control. Match the repair to the material and leave valuable, delicate, or structurally damaged pieces to someone with the right experience. Older household manuals treated mending as scheduled maintenance, not evidence of failure. That attitude is useful now. Repairing something early does not mean refusing every replacement. It means allowing an otherwise sound object to finish its useful life before a tiny neglected weakness makes the decision for you. The 16th habit is to give the house an inspection day. This sounds less exciting than a miracle cleaner, which is precisely why it works. Historical household systems assigned regular times to inspect the pantry, cellar, clothing, drawers, and supplies. The purpose was to find what ordinary memory overlooks. The modern version can take 10 minutes. Look beneath one sink for moisture. Check the oldest pantry package. Feel whether the kitchen cloth has dried. Notice a loose button, a blocked vent, a soft vegetable, a window collecting water, or a cord that should no longer be used. Write down anything that requires a qualified repair rather than attempting work beyond your ability. Do not try to inspect the entire building in one anxious sweep. Rotate small zones from week to week. The value comes from recurrence. A leak discovered early, a food package isolated quickly, or a seam repaired while small may save far more time than the inspection consumed. The inherited skill was not endless labor, it was timing. Good household care moves a problem into view while the choices are still simple. The 17th habit returns us to the damp cloth on the table. Open it instead of leaving it in a ball. A crumpled dishcloth holds damp layers together and dries slowly. Rinse ordinary soil, spread the cloth fully, and hang it where air reaches both sides. Replace and launder kitchen cloths, often rather than waiting for a sour smell. Separate jobs that should not share a cloth. A towel used around raw meat should not travel across clean dishes, ready-to-eat food, and cabinet handles. Heavily soiled cloths need appropriate laundering. A disposable towel may be more practical for a contaminated spill. 19th century dishwashing instructions ended by rinsing the dishcloth and hanging it up. The tools have changed, but the reason remains easy to see. Open fabric exposes more surface to moving air. A tight bundle protects the moisture you are trying to remove, yet dampness is not the only thing a cloth can hold. Before every kitchen rag goes into the same basket, we need to separate ordinary water from chemicals and oil. That distinction will bring us back to this table one final time. This is where respect for old knowledge needs a firm boundary. A historical book can prove that people used a method. It cannot prove that the method is safe. The last 3 habits keep useful principles, cleaning, separation, and close observation, while refusing dangerous formulas that traveled beside them. The 18th habit is to clean first and disinfect second. Cleaning uses water, soap, or detergent, friction, and removal to lift grease, crumbs, dirt, and many germs from a surface. Disinfecting uses a product intended to kill remaining germs under specific conditions. Those are related jobs, but they are not the same job. If a counter has a film of grease and dried food, spraying disinfectant over that layer does not make the soil disappear. Remove loose debris. Wash with a cleaner appropriate for the surface. Rinse when the product directions require it. Then decide whether disinfection is actually needed, such as after certain contamination events or when someone in the home is ill. When you disinfect, follow the label. Use the stated concentration, ventilation, protective equipment, and contact time. A product that must keep the surface visibly wet for several minutes cannot perform as directed if it is sprayed and immediately wiped away. More product is not a substitute for correct time. For routine household soil, plain cleaning may be the work that matters. Save disinfectants for situations where they are appropriate. This reduces unnecessary chemical use without pretending that soap and a registered disinfectant are interchangeable. The practical sequence is simple enough to remember once. Remove the soil, choose the correct next step, and let the product directions, not habit or internet theater, control the chemistry. The 19th habit is never to turn cleaning into kitchen chemistry. Do not mix household bleach, disinfectants, ammonia cleaners, acids, or other cleaning products unless the manufacturer explicitly says the combination is intended and safe. Bleach mixed with ammonia can release dangerous chloramine gases. Bleach mixed with acids can release chlorine gas. A room that suddenly smells sharp is not evidence that the mixture is working better. Keep products in their original labeled containers. Do not pour a cleaner into a beverage bottle, an unlabeled jar, or a reused food container. Read the label every time, because formulas and concentrations vary. Provide ventilation, wear the protection directed by the manufacturer, and keep children and animals away until the label says the area is safe. Vinegar and baking soda each have limited household uses on compatible materials. Combining them produces vigorous bubbles, but bubbling alone does not prove superior cleaning or disinfection. Vinegar can damage some stone finishes, metals, and dyes. Baking soda can scratch delicate surfaces. Test a mild method in an inconspicuous place and use the material manufacturer's care instructions. If cleaners are accidentally mixed and irritating vapor appears, leave the area and get to fresh air without trying to neutralize the reaction yourself. Seek emergency or poison control guidance appropriate to your location and symptoms. The safer old-fashioned lesson is not that every answer sits in the pantry. It is that a careful housekeeper knows what a substance is, where it belongs, and what must never share its container. The 20th habit is to treat a cloth heavily soiled with oil as a fire risk, not ordinary laundry. This is the cloth from the beginning. A damp dishcloth and an oil-soaked rag may look equally harmless, but water and certain oils behave differently as they sit. Some oils react with oxygen as they dry, releasing heat. Spreading cloth may allow heat to escape, but that observation is not a complete handling or disposal method. When oily cloths are folded together, packed into a basket, left warm, or placed in a dryer, the fabric can trap heat. Under the wrong conditions, the temperature can rise until the material smokes or catches fire. Kitchen towels heavily contaminated with vegetable oil deserve caution, and rags used with drying oils for wood finishing can present an especially serious hazard. Ordinary laundering may not remove all the oil. Do not toss these cloths into a pile, leave them near a stove or hoarder, or assume a hot dryer will solve the problem. Handling and disposal depend on the oil, product label, fire guidance, and local waste rules. For a reusable cloth with a small food smear, follow laundering directions. For a rag saturated with cooking oil, linseed oil, tung oil, stain, or finish, consult product instructions or a local fire authority. Keep it away from buildings, ignition sources, children, and animals while following an approved method. Never seal a warm reacting rag into a random container. This final habit gathers the entire house into one object. Moisture, airflow, heat, material, time, and storage all matter. The rag is not dangerous because it is old. It becomes dangerous when we fail to notice what changed its condition. That is why inspection beats assumption, and why the safest modern correction can honor the intelligence behind an old routine without copying every old method. Look back at the table. The thirsty basil has lifted. The pantry jar has a label. The dishcloth is open to air while the oil-soiled rag is separated for safe handling. Take 10 minutes this week and inspect one sink, one window, one pantry shelf, one kitchen cloth, and one loose seam. What household habit did someone in your family follow every week? And what did they call it in your region? Next time, we will test which traditional cleaning tricks still work and which should never be tried.